hiking along the river. We were hiking towards the mountains. We didn't even know that the trees are just along the river, and back out towards the mountain. See, we were maybe going to live at the base of the mountains, maybe not even on the river. We were maybe going to find a little creek coming out of the mountains or something and live along that. We didn't know, so we were hiking out in the more or less the tundra and black spruce for days. And after about 3 days out, there was a good part of the middle of the day. I think about 11 o'clock in the morning we had to quit snowshoeing because the snow was getting so soft you just right through, man. Those snowshoes would be going down. You'd just be right down, And then we'd be traveling like in the morning and late in the evening. And that's when we got way up there anyway, 10 miles up, and decided, well, this isn't, we can't live out here, and let's get out of the river, And on the way up, we walked right through the spruce grove and saw the nice open water out in front, and this looked like a nice place, but it was only, saw it on the first day out, and we wanted to check out more country. We had been coming across the tundra, and this is a big bend in the river that sticks out into the tundra, and hit this bend and saw this spot and then headed out in the tundra again. But we figured, well, let's go down along the river, and just head back to where we came from, but do it by way of the river, and we'll walk the river, stay on the river ice, because we couldn't walk in the snow no more with snowshoes. And some places, that's all there was overflow, and you had to watch where you're walking, but, because it's a lot of thin ice, but we just, some places making some pretty good time, walking on the ice, putting on the snowshoes every now and then.
But you brought in snowshoes with you?
Yeah, I made snowshoes in Boston before I came up. Had some nice big, not commercial lumber, but nice big, little upturns. Nice snowshoes I made.
And overflow is what? You get a crack in the ice, and the water comes up through the crack, and then starts flowing on top of the ice.
Mm-hmm. Actually, it don't happen too much down here, but usually on smaller rivers. It happens everywhere too, though. But yeah, a lot of times, like on these smaller rivers, if you got permafrost under the river, and then you got the river freezing from above, well, midwinter or something like that, basically the river's freezing right to the bottom, and the ice is actually forming on the bottom and freezing coming up. And so it's sort of like, but there's still water coming from all the soil and through the gravel, and there's still water flowing down the river. It flows all winter, and it's always draining off of the mountains, probably. So you always got water coming down, but it's just the place where it's normally flowing isn't there no more. It's all freezing. It's getting solid, and so it'll just find a place to come up. There's always a crack, like you say, or there's some place, and it'll come up on top, and it'll just start flowing down on top. And the first time it does it, maybe you got a foot of snow or 2 feet of snow on the river, and it can get pretty bummed to traveling, because all that snow will fill up with water, and it takes so long. It's like a sponge filling up. And when you go to walk in the snow, you're just in slush, But after that freezes, then, it's the overflow keep happening, and a lot of times it's really nice to travel on, even if it's wet, because you'll only have about an inch of water, or, just like seepage, out on top, and it makes for really nice traveling.
If it gets down to pretty close to bare ice.
Yeah, but when it first comes through that snow, that first overflow, boy, you can get really stuck in that stuff big time with a dog team or snow machine especially.
Knee deep in slush.
Oh God, terrible stuff.
And that's probably the worst stuff you can get in.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to fall through the river, but either into a deep hole. But it's the worst as far as getting stuck.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go through water with a snow machine. You can swim dogs through the river. I used to just, as a daily routine, swim the things quite a ways, down flooded out sloughs and stuff, with me standing on the back of the handlebars or propped up on with hip waders or just getting wet, and you'd be in 4 foot or 3 foot of water, and the sled would be completely underwater, sometimes completely, handlebars and everything completely, and you'd just be kind of propped up, riding on the old trail. You'd see the trail, the old snow trail down across a lake or something that it was filling up with water, and the dogs would be just swimming.
And towing the sled along.
Just, yeah, 'cause the sled's so easy to tow, you know, it's half float.
Yeah.
You know.
So everything in the sled is going to get wet unless you got it in plastic bags or something.
Right, but that time of year you have them checking beaver sets or something, or, you know, doing something that, I mean, I don't carry anything with me that is going to get wet, you know. Sometimes you'd even, like crossing the river, you know, you get shelf ice on both sides. You'd have the dogs jump off the shelf ice into pretty swift water sometimes, you know, and would all be going down the river, and they'd be swimming across, and they'd get up on the ledge ice on the shore and get those leaders up on it, and they'd pull the swing dogs up on it, and then they'd all pull the rest of the dogs up on it, and then on the front of the sled I used to tie 2 5-gallon cans of square gas cans empty. I used to strap them down in the front of the sled, and I'd be sunk, you know, going across the river, maybe even like up to here, kind of holding onto the sled, just touching the bottom or something, or something like that, and those gas cans would keep the front of the sled floating up, and that bumper, see the back of the sled being down and the gas cans holding it up, that bumper would be way up in the air, and it would hit that ledge ice, and boom, you know, and I used to keep my front of my runners and my bumper designed in such a way that, you know, once the bumper got over the edge ice, you know, it had a nice smooth, so it,
The dogs
up
could
we
pull
go.
you on it.
yeah, they were good dogs. Do that as a daily routine, going down the river, making all the river crossings. Had three river crossings to get the first mile, and every day into the river, into the river, into the river. Yeah, they were.
But here you were soaked.
Yeah, but God, in the springtime it might be 50 degrees out, you know, and maybe I usually wouldn't get soaked up here, you know. My idea was to not get soaked at all, but you know, there'd be towards the end there I'd be way soaked every day.
Yeah.
I try not to get my chest wet. It was so warm, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, the river's freezing cold, but when that sun's shining in the spring, there might still be snow on the sandbars and gravel and snow. You know, you're running over a lot of bare ground and stuff too. But it's warm and it's amazing, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if it turned real cold on you, then you got a real problem.
Yeah, but you're only out and going down 3 miles, 5 miles, check beaver sets.
Yeah.
You're not far away from home. Just a quick little run, you know. It's
And if you wear something like mouse boots, you don't have to worry about your feet freezing.
yeah. Which back in those days I had. Yeah, even in those first years, we used to always try it out at Fairbanks to get some of those used putty boots, you know.
Yeah, military surplus and so. Yeah.
Yeah. I used to run around with just jeans that time of year, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
When you had an emergency, as far as getting out of here or notifying somebody, what do you
Like
do
if somebody got hurt.
then? Yeah. Or let's say somebody was having childbirth. Did you get out of here
Yeah.
and go into town for it, or ahead of time, or what?
God, there was some interesting. See, you know, after a while, you know, there's developed quite a community out here. You know, after a few years, you know, people got some cabins built downriver and a few other people. See, that first summer out here, the land was open only for. I had it closed in January of the first winter, or the first year I was out here. You know, so, but that summer that I was out here, like that. Remember that guy Jack I was telling you about downriver? He staked some land and he was cutting some lumber for a place, and Russ went and staked that. Actually, he staked his land that summer. That's right. Yeah, he had staked that summer. He walked downriver and just staked the place. And there were Tom Fogg and Bill Flores. They met each other in the Geological Survey office in Fairbanks, and they walked out here together and hit Ptarmigan Creek over there, and they heard there was somebody out here, you know, but they didn't know where. Yeah. And they ran across us. They were walking down the river on a sandbar, and I seen them on the sandbar, you know, and went across the river to them and talked to them for a while. I thought they were fishing game guys or something. I didn't know what the hell was up, you know. And we were shooting a few things like beaver for meat, you know, and you know, I knew that stuff wasn't kosher, but yeah, they staked land, but then they walked right back out, you know. They just staked some. So there were a bunch of people that had legal land staked out here, even as of the first winter. or the first summer, you know, and but that winter, of course, there was nobody here but us, and but you know, after a few years, there was all these people had moved on to their land, got nice cabins built. And there was a nice community here, and people were, the women were, starting to think about kids and stuff, and my ex-old lady, she had decided to have we decided to have a kid, and downriver she decided to have one, and Karen decided to have one, and Karen, we went to town to have ours, into Tanana, and Ann did too. She actually, I think, went into Fairbanks, but Karen, she had her baby a month premature, and she was just about ready to go into Tanana or to Fairbanks to have hers,
Yeah.
Didn't want to chance it out here, and all of a sudden she started going into labor. And I, at the time, see, how did that work? No. For a while, I had the only CB radio here. By this time, people downriver had radios too, CB radios. So when she started going into labor, somebody called on the CB radio into the Air Force site. We had a little signal system. They had a little unit there that would pick up a frequency tone. If we on our CB radio whistle to whistle, you could do it with your mouth, but we had these whistles. And they had a little unit that if there was if they picked up a certain frequency, it would set off an alarm, and then they would turn on their CB. So that's what happened. They contacted the site in there, and somebody's going into labor. And so here comes the Air Force. They got the Air Force out here. And here's this this doctor who was a major, and the pilot, helicopter pilot, and his crew, they're all heading out here. We know nothing about this now. We knew Karen was pregnant. She was going to go out to Fairbanks,
Yeah.
Anyway, next thing I know, here comes a helicopter. Now the helicopter was given directions on the radio of where to go. He was told to go to the confluence of the Dagaslackner and Tozitna River. That means where they come together.
Yeah.
That's 10 miles downriver.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Somehow he got screwed up and came out this way and saw the cabin.
Yeah.
Said, that's where it is. So the pilot landed out here in the sandbar. I run down there. I don't know what the heck's going on. And there's this big chopper out there, Air Force chopper, and all of a sudden the door opens on the chopper. I'm standing there. This guy with a helmet comes out with blankets under his arm. He rushes past me. Doesn't even say hi or anything, Rushes past me, runs up into the woods here, comes up into the cabin. Meanwhile, I'm back down there at the thing going, what's going on, And, well, there's somebody having a baby here, there's nobody having a baby here. And I go, oh, no, that must... Karen downriver, she's having her baby, And meanwhile, the major, this is,
Yeah.
he's a major, He's rushing into the cabin. Helen's standing here, and he bursts into the cabin. She's standing there. And where's the person having a baby? And there's nobody here having a baby, And this is what she's telling me. She told me later, And he's just, major, It's all. His pilot screwed up, man. He's all mad, I can imagine those pilots, man. I don't know. He's probably peeling potatoes for for a while, after that one. Anyway, he rushes back down, runs into the thing. My wife at the time, Helen, told him, "Oh, you must mean down the river here, 10 miles, right at the Forks." And he rushes back into the chopper, and off they go. So, she had actually had the kid.
By the time they got there.
By the time they got there.
Yeah, and as far as the radar site from here is about 30 miles, isn't it?
Exactly. 20, well, okay, probably only 23 or something air miles.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah.
Because I was wondering with a CB carrying out there.
Yeah.
You didn't have to have a booster or anything on it.
On a good day, a normal 5-watt CB would do it. I used to have this nice rig here, that I bought off this guy at the site. It was a 100 watt amplifier, illegal.
Oh yeah.
But of course out here, and I could get through even in pretty bum weather.
Yeah.
Yeah, even I could get through almost all the time with that 100 watt amplifier. I didn't have that in the beginning. The site guys actually gave me a CB for the first few years, but after a bunch of years, I bought a couple fox skins and a marten skin or something, and bought this CB off of a site guy,
With a linear on the thing.
Yeah, linear 100 watt amplifier. Sucked down the battery juice, man, fast. You didn't want to talk too long with that because that's all we had back then was car batteries.
And how'd you charge that car battery?
Car alternator hooked to a 2-horse Briggs and Stratton engine, and just circuitry, just like you'd have in a car,
So you did that out here.
Yeah, I just made that out here.
You didn't get into a wind generator then.
Not then. Yeah, even during the days when I had that wind generator out and up in the trees, there's so little wind here.
Yeah.
There were some days, nice big windstorms. The thing would be clicking along fine up in the trees there, and the battery would be charging. I'd be checking the specific gravity on it, and it'd be charging up real nice. It was 6 volt at a time, so it was one of those big cat batteries actually. It had the bars on top. You could charge half of the battery at a time.
Yeah.
And it did it sometimes, but there were a lot of times, even in the days when I had the wind charger up in the tree, I had to supplement it.
Yeah.
Now downriver 10 miles where all my neighbors were, there's a constant breeze and good steady wind, directional wind too. It's always flowing in one direction, whereas here it's a lot of times the trees are just going back and forth and this way and that way.
So those guys use wind generators
No,
now?
never did, but one would have worked down there.
Yeah. Everybody went to the automobile alternator.
Yeah, another guy copied mine and made one down there. And then, guys like Jack Bloom, down there, he had a nice little generator, one of those little 500 watt generator Hondas,
Yeah.
really nice little things,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you absolutely need to charge batteries, they'll fire it up.
Yeah, heck, half a gallon of gas or whatever it would take, or charge up a battery, and it'll last a long time. You could run a radio all winter long on one charge of a battery. We tried to run lights inside the house, little car tail lights, and it lasts about a week. We charge up that battery about a week of 8 hours a day. And those tail lights, it burned it out. Which, we just use the lanterns mostly. Maybe if I had these fluorescents, like I bought this little cheap fluorescent here.
Yeah.
If I had gone to fluorescents and stuff, that's only, that thing's probably only 7 watts. Car tail lights are 18.
Yeah.
Probably if I had stuff like that, more energy efficient stuff in those days, it would have worked better. And the wind generator could have used a little more. I had a car regulator to control the wind generator, and car regulators they're great, but they're their click in point and their click out point.
Yep.
If you understand it,
Yes.
I don't know how to explain it, but when they click on to send juice up to the wind generator, it gets going a certain speed, and then when you want it to click off, when the wind generator slows down, they're to try to adjust a car regulator
Make it
to do
sensitive
it at the
enough.
right point, where you're not wasting a little battery juice, here and there, is really tough. They have special regulators for them, and they're $100.
Yeah.
But back in those days, $100 was, a good part of our year's income, and so if you couldn't make it, you couldn't have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been neat. This isn't a good place for a generator.
So now you're out here 11 years.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time, during the winter months, it was forage for food, try to make $1, trapping, building sleds, things of this nature. Did you build sleds or anything like that for sale?
Actually, I never built a sled for sale, but I have a lot of things that I've gotten, and money too, that I've gotten for I like to build sleds for myself and try out a new design.
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of sleds that, I have a lot of sleds around, and all of a sudden there'd be a sled I wasn't using, and somebody'd say, make me a sled, and I'd say, well, I got this old one, it's 2 years old, it's like brand new, I'll sell it to you for, used, yeah, there's a lot of things, Jake bought a couple of my, he's bought 2 sleds off me,
Uh-huh.
and I had a little race sled one time that 115 horse motor on the back of that big boat that I have in town. That's what I got with a dog sled.
Yeah.
Yeah, that race sled. It was a bum. It had mechanical trouble with it,
Yeah.
and stuff. But I got that off of John Huntington, and I still running that motor. That thing's been running a lot of years. But I got a lot of things for sleds, but didn't really go into a business of making new sleds.
Yeah.
And I remember Russ Woody got an old, big old snowgo dog sled. I use it for both. He got a big old sled off me that he used to use on a snowgo for years. Got that one off,
And now you're living out here, and you entered the Iditarod.
Yeah, with my
How
traveling
does a man living 40 miles out in the bush get the means to enter the Iditarod?
Well, let's see. By now, you're talking. Well, actually, I had maybe had. In summertime, I might have 12 dogs. 7 dogs and a few puppies or something like that. But actually, I went even up until '82. Winter of '81, '82. I remember I had only 7 dogs. It wasn't like I was into big teams back then, but I'd get in these local races in Tanna with my 7 dogs or something like that, and nobody would congratulate me for winning, that's for sure. But usually I'd come in with those 7 dogs, and they'd say, God, they sure have a lot of. God, they came in pretty good and went out slow as all heck. You had the leaders laying down the chute. Sometimes my leaders would be laying down the chute sleep. I remember one spring in the April races, one of the first years I raced. I pulled up to the chute, and my leaders laid down on the ground, just going to sleep. They're so used to trap line and just running, and
Yeah.
he just laid down. Everybody's just laughing at that dog, and time to go, I'd say, everybody ready, and they'd pop right up, and off down the trail would go, just kind of trotting away, maybe running a little trot, and everybody go, it'd take him a little while to get around the track at that speed, and there I'd come down the island, and I'd be charging down the trail, with these warmed up dogs, here everybody else's dogs are getting tired towards the end of the race or something, or frothing up, and here my dog's just charging down the trail and coming across the trail and just standing there, and like everybody's saying, God, you could go another 40 miles and stuff like that, and they didn't even take anything out of them, and of course I came in last half the time, or sometimes I did all right, but didn't come in last all the time, but competing with these sprint guys, but I was getting recognized as having pretty tough dogs, and they were, they'd trap all winter and work their butts off, hauling freight and stuff, and I had a friend in Tanna, a real good friend that I used to stay with when I went into Tanna, and he was into dogs for a few years, but he used to do a lot of mechanic work in town, run the oil, work for the oil company in town, and he was really into planes, and flying planes and fixing up old planes, and into all sorts of stuff, But he always wanted to run the Iditarod. It was his dream, and so he had his dogs too, but he could never really apply himself and get the dogs in shape for the Iditarod. And after about 3 years of this, he's like, I'm never going to run the Iditarod. I could see it now, or something like that. And he used to buy fish eggs in the summer, legally, and doing commercial season. And this one year, it's just like everything else, Sometimes you make some money, sometimes you don't. And this one year, because of the amount of fish, the way the seasons will run, just everything really clicked. He made some bucks. I think he made like maybe 20,000 had a lot of expenses because he was flying a float plane up and down the river collecting the eggs and all that. But he made some bucks, and he bought this old used Cherokee 6, one of those like 10 Air type planes, you know.
Yeah.
It was an old 10 Air plane. They were letting it go. It was getting too old to fly commercial, and he bought the son of a gun. And he was going to use, he had this idea, you know, I didn't know nothing about it because, you know, I don't go into town all summer long, and hadn't even been, I don't know, maybe I had made one trip into town. Might have even, it was, I don't know, it might have even made a trip into town yet. Here it is, end of December or something, you know, and, you know, if I had, I had only made one trip into town. I hadn't really talked to him about his dreams and plans and stuff, you know, or maybe hadn't formulated them on my first trip in November or whatever. But he was starting to dream up this idea of, okay, I'm going to buy this Cherokee for 15 grand, and that's going to leave me broke. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that plane. I got to fly it a lot anyway to because I don't even think he had a license at the time.
Yeah.
You know, and he was going to use that plane, fly dog food from Fairbanks into Tanana and sell it to the Sprint mushes, and you know, start a little dog food business. And that way, he'd be putting in his flying time, and then heck, while I'm at it, I got a few thousand extra, and maybe I'm going to make a little money anyway. You know, I'll fly some more dog food into Tanana, and we'll put Stanley in the race. Yeah. I ain't going to fly race the race anyway, but I got a couple of good dogs. He did have a couple of good dogs, you know, and but he didn't have no, you know, team of good dogs, and I'll lend him a couple of good dogs, and you know, we'll enter him in the Iditarod. Here it is, like December 22nd or something. It's just before Christmas, and Claire, his wife or girlfriend back then, maybe, I don't know. Actually, they got married that spring when I was in Nome. After the end of the race, they got married. Wouldn't even wait for me to get back from Nome. But anyway, she was coming out to bring packages and everything to the people down the river. Landed on Russ Woods airstrip down there, just a gravel bar in the snow, and bring packages out to them. They had hired her to bring some stuff out. And I just happened to have come off my trap line, which kind of goes close to the bluffs down there where they live. And I'd come off my trap line. I just thought I'd scoot down and see him. So I was down at Russ's house the day she flew in. And of course, you know, basically the dogs I got at the time, now it's well a month or more into trapping season, and my dogs they're worn out. They're sparky in the beginning, but now their feet are bleeding, their bones are showing, they're and I remember I had bought, I was not doing too bad on food. I had a lot of salmon put up, and I think I was even buying a little bit of grain out of Fairbanks, oats and stuff like that, to mix with the dog food. And hell, in '82 we were growing potatoes over in the garden. I don't know if we had that year, but one year we had 1,500 pounds of potatoes. We eat 300-400 ourselves, and all the rest went to the dogs. So basically they weren't doing that bad, but they're still, it's trying to keep 7 dogs fed. And, they were a little worn out and thin. And here I am down at Russ's, and we go over to meet the plane. We hear Claire come in with a load of stuff, and we go over to the airstrip, and she opens up the door and says, "Hi, Rush," and "Hi, everybody," and "Yeah, here's the boxes," and "Hey, Stanley, how you doing?" And "Hey, you better get your dogs. How your dogs doing?" They're all right, and I say, and well, you better get training them. You better get them in shape. You're running the Iditarod. And I said, "What? What the hell are you talking about?" He said, "Mike's putting you in the Iditarod. Get ready. Get into town. Talk to him. He wants to talk to you right now. Come on in. And I said, "Come on, you're fooling me. And no, he's serious. He's bought a plane. And he's gonna fit it all in together and fly you in feed so you can train your dogs up and feed them good, and get them all in shape, with the good meat and all that sort of stuff, and we're going to put you in the race, and, get into town and talk to him. I remember going back over Russell's cabin, everybody's saying, well, what are you going to do, it's oh, damn, I'm going to run the Iditarod, And I remember, like, Ann Wood saying, oh, come on, what's Helen going to say, She ain't going to let you do that, And I said, well, I don't care, I'm going to run the Iditarod. If he's going to put me in, I'm going to run the darn thing, and, hell, it's an opportunity of a lifetime, man, So anyway, I go home, tell Helen that, and I remember that night, I had this bucket of fat. See, back in those years, like in '82, in those later years out here, I was going into town every year to race, in the springtime, just the local play races, in the springtime. Just play around, visit, after winter trapping. And so I had this, that fall, I had bought this 5-gallon bucket of lard, dog lard, it's
chicken
low quality lard, for the dogs. And I was saving that for the races, in the springtime, to get them into shape, to get them fattened up a little bit and get some meat on their bones, and that was my race plan for that spring. I remember that night I broke out the bucket of fat, middle of December, broke out the bucket of fat and said, you guys better start getting in shape, and went into town, and it was like January 1st, January 3rd, something like that, January 1st, I think, something like that, when I hit 10 and went into Mike's house and actually confirmed and found out that he was serious. He was going to put me in the race. This is 2 months, less than maybe 2 months, I forget when the Iditarod started back then, but it was like 2 months from when the Iditarod started, and I hadn't even given anything any thought, about, I didn't have a decent sleeping bag, didn't have a decent parka, didn't have, anything,
Yeah.
I had 7 dogs. People were running 16, 14 dogs back in those days. Those were your 18 dogs even, those are your major teams are running, I had 7 dogs, and basically all I had was Tozy salmon, for dog food, And so he said, well, listen, we'll get them in shape. You just take care of the dogs. I got 2 dogs here that I think might run with you, we'll get you some other dogs around town. You just run the dogs, concentrate on the dogs. I'll take care of the money. I got a little money. I'm going to be flying some dog food in, making some money that way, and you just take care of the dogs. So I head back out here and expected him to have some good food in town next time I showed up, and maybe picked up a few more dogs when I was in town too. Started training. Just every time I'd leave town with 16 dogs, 18 dogs. Have four more dogs from somebody. Barely make it out to the Tozy here with them because they had no miles on them. Run them a couple of times back foot to town. Give some of them back. Keep this one. Get another one here and there. Just that whole scene. Well, anyway, I think it was during this time, on one of my trips to town, I go into town, Claire says, we've got some bad news to you. Mike's in Fairbanks working on his plane. We were taking off on the first dog food haul from Fairbanks. There's ice fogged in Fairbanks. Taking off on this little strip at Phillips Field. And they're taking off with the airplane. It was all ice fogged up and stuff, and they took off in the plane, and something happened. The plane faulted a little, and all of a sudden it went down, then started to come up, and he lost his bearings, couldn't see him. The ice fog wingtip hit the berm, spun him around, ripped the motor off its mounts, and there went the plane. And so it's like he said, well, I don't know what to do. I don't know if we should run it, or not. And he said, well, what do you think? You willing to run it on, Tozy salmon? He said, I ain't going to be able to afford any dog food. I ain't going to be making any money flying. I ain't going to be able to fly you in any food. Maybe we can get some decent food together for the race, but you ain't gonna be able to train on anything decent. And I said, I'll go for anything, man. I'll run 7 dogs in the darn thing. You take care of the business end of things, you know.
Yeah.
So we kept on, and basically just spent, the next couple of months hauling extra supplies out here for making sure there's lots of firewood put up for, doing all my freight hauling that I normally do around that time of year, doing it early, which was easier because I had more dogs now. I'm running, 15 dog teams and stuff, and just before the race, Mike brought in a load of food. He finally got his plane fixed, brought in a load of food. I moved into town, about 2 weeks before the race. He showed up about a week before I was, or a week before, about 2 weeks. He showed up with some food, about a week before I was going to take off to the race, not a week before the race. I was going to drive the dogs to Nenana, hit Manly, and then drive on to Nenana and meet a guy in Fairbanks, a friend of Russ Wood, who I'd met out here, who was putting together a dog truck for me. He was building a dog box. He said I can use it anyway, for helping. I got a girlfriend that's got dogs, and but he was building the dog box for me. Meanwhile, people in town, all this time are hey, I got 50 fish, extra fish. You need them, Great, Yukon salmon, a little bit of fat for them, Mike McCann and a bunch of other people in town, they're getting together. They had these 2 pancake feeds, where everybody from town, a lot of people from town would show up and buy breakfast, pancakes and bacon and stuff, for a couple of bucks, and they raised, 300 here, 300 there. Somebody had slipped me a $50 bill. There was a guy in town, Sandy Hamilton, that had made 2 trips on the Iditarod before, done okay, and he had the technology down. Whenever I was in town, I'd go up his house and just sit there and listen to him. I'd have a book, and he'd say, okay, at Shaktoolik, there's no trees beyond Shaktoolik. There's no, this kind of thing. You got to make sure you have your, there's no place to camp, and all this sort of stuff. Just you need this, you need that. He built me a sled, made me a nice toboggan sled. This is the latest design, and which had a lot of trouble with the sled because it was a new design, but just a great guy, just helped me out. Just everybody in town. I think I had 60 people before I left for the Iditarod. There was a little going away thing, there were 60 people I named off with major, either money or fish or dogs or to help me out.
To help you out.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't just me racing the race, and